All around us, we see evidence of growth. The last couple of years has been really, really good for Kings. And the key to that is to recognize that if we continue on that same trajectory, over the next 5 years, we're going to have to put in systems and structures to handle that kind of growth. At the moment, we have 60 people on a Sunday at the one church and 15 to 20 at the other. Can you imagine a church where there's 250? We're not far off that. If we continue on the same growth path, we'll pass that within the 5 years. So having a strategy and structures that support that growth are essential, because otherwise people will come in the one door and we won't do the essential work and they'll go out the other door. And a big part of that is teamwork, recognizing that the minister cannot be involved in every part of the church, but that we're a team of ministers. So the systems are going to be very, very important. Now, the difficulty with the systems is that as we bring in systems, we have to lead the way in adopting those systems. And I know it means change and it means learning and growth. But if we're dedicated, we can do that. An example is the G drive. It was suggested to us because some of the files we will work with are bigger than you can email. And if we start an email train, so I fix something and I send it to Richard, and then he fixes something and he sends it back, it's an inefficient way of doing it. On a G drive, we can collaborate, and we're looking at ways we can make that easier. So let's have a look at the 5-year plan. The first thing we need to recognize is we have a vision. Our vision is for people to encounter Jesus together. And the number one value that we put to that is that we want to be reaching young families. Does our church actually, right now, have things in place for that? Because that is the most important generation. And so if we look at our structure, when I arrived at this church, we had King's Church in Frodsham. We had some online ministries. And the church was very small. It was a small church, and it is no longer a small church. The structures we have are small church structures, but we are now a medium-sized church, and we're looking to be a large church. Not because we want a large church, but because we want to make a great impact for the Lord. And so we suggested a change in structure. And the current structure is to have King's Church and then have different sites, being Frodsham, Knutsford, and our online site, and future growth. And as God unpacks the vision, I have confidence that other people and other churches in other places are going to say, we want to be a part of what God is doing at King's. What do we say to them? How do they become part of King's? Whole churches could join King's. And in doing so, in a country where there is very little growth in the church, we're able to take that growth so much further into so many different places. But as I've prayed over the structure, I've recognized that we've got a couple of things we need to tweak. The first thing is we need to recognize that King's Church, the central hub that holds us all together, doesn't need to be involved in all the decisions of each and every site. We want to put in place a leadership team who lead King's, who are the trustees and the board of the organization. But then we want to have a mission and ministry meeting on each site where those who are active in that particular area don't have to get involved in all the decisions, and we can release them to minister. So where does the online church fit in that? The truth is that the online church is absolutely essential and should be a second value. You see, that's what ties us all together. If we put in a competent online structure, including a website and social media strategies, and understand what each and every part has to play in that, we can lessen the work and be far more efficient in how we work. Things like Church Suite. Church Suite is used by many churches and is a great way of communicating. We can put the Encounter course online on YouTube and on podcast. then people can go on the course when they choose, which is the world we live in. And when they've completed the course, we will know that they've got the information to take the right decision. And the plan is to refilm that and create a login situation where people can log in and do the work of becoming a partner of the church. So online needs to be part and surrounding who we are as kings. We need to look at partnering with people who really know and trusting them and outsourcing the stuff that we're not very good at. Right, so then we come to the King's leadership structure. Now, there are things that, according to the Book of Discipline, we need to do. We need to have an annual society meeting. We need to have different committees. And my proposal is that we have a leadership structure that has a senior pastor, a lay delegate. The lay delegate is appointed annually, but for a 3-year term, extendable 3 times, right? Because that is a really powerful way of taking a vision forward. If we keep on changing the lay delegate, we're not going to get anywhere. So a maximum of 9 years, but that would make sense to me. A church treasurer, we need a secretary, and that be a 3-year term, so that again we can get the systems in place. The safeguarding lead, and then we need at least 2 additional trustees appointed from our churches, so that we can make sure of continuity and that we can get the work done. We want just 2 delegates from each site, because they're looking at the central running of the church, and they need to communicate that down to the mission and ministry meeting. And so if that makes sense, and we can tweak it, it's not written in stone, we would propose that at our AGM and set that committee up for next year. They would meet every 3 months to look at the following work. They'd be the local board of administration. They would sort out the annual society meeting. They would be the trustees of the organization. 2 groups that would report into that would be the pastor's cabinet and the finance board. And then there would be a nominating and membership committee at an overall level, nominating, making sure that we have key people in key roles, and the membership care is just looking after who are our members and dealing with things like discipline and how do we encourage our members to grow in the faith. That we need to become familiar with these terms. These are the Free Methodist terms, and I think they're incredibly helpful. Then we come to the mission and ministry meetings, right? Now, if we look at that, we're going to find that there is a number of different areas in church that need to be dealt with, okay? Overall, we want to have somebody in a pastor's role leading those areas so that the pastor isn't the same person. Just look at these areas at the moment. We have prayer. We have Sundays. Sundays are a lot of work. We have young people. And if that's our focus, then we really need to invest. Maybe we should call that families. We have new members. The new members' work is not just helping people become members, but that whole process of taking people from the moment they make connection to the church to when they partner with the church, including things like the Encounters course, welcomes, baptisms, all those different things. We need a spiritual growth team to continue the excellent work of the Bible studies, helping train the leaders, provide material, and start new groups. We need a mission and outreach group, and they are essentially our events team. We have a lot of events, but at the moment that work is falling on a few people, including myself. And I think there are some incredibly talented people who could be putting these things in place. Resources. Now, resources include things like your safeguarding, your finance, your properties, all those kind of things. Those are the very practical matters, and those shouldn't be very much near the minister at all. Having a resources chair would mean that those people in those areas have someone to talk to and only bring what is essential to the main meeting. Our online church, now that really is so essential. We've got a lot of learning and growth to do. And if we get that in place, we have a champion of that ministry, a team leader or a pastor of our online church, making sure that things happen and happen effectively. And then membership care. Now, we've talked a lot about pastoral care, but pastoral care is an old-fashioned term. The Free Methodist one is membership care. There's very strict definitions of what that involves, but we want to invest in that and have a strategy overall that we can then disseminate down to our different groups. So those 10 areas, we have work as a nominating committee to do to find the right people to lead those areas. At the moment, I'm involved in just about every one, but if I'm going to be effective, I need to focus too. And so if we look at this, we would have in the various sites, we would have a meeting each month to look at the essential stuff for that month. How are we doing ministry? What mission opportunities there are? Membership care on a local level, nominating, finding the right people who can lead the different areas, and giving people ownership of their local site. So that's the very basic kind of structure we want to look at. If we're able to do this, and there's so much more because we need to unpack and the roles, the strategies for each area, my hope and plan is that we can have in April a weekend, a King's Church weekend, and put a mix of prophecy, teaching, prayer, and sharing the strategy so that we can get ownership right across the organization, because that's the key. And we as leaders need to take the lead in terms of that. Help people understand why we're doing things, how we're doing things, and help them understand how to pray and help us identify the key leaders of our church so that we can go forward and create the kind of structure that God can use to truly build kings into the church he needs us to be. This is just a brief introduction, and we'll chat some more in the meeting, but just take some time to pray about it. There will be things that you find challenging here, but we need to come and sit at the feet of Jesus and listen and say, how is it that we are going to do things? If we're going to challenge things, please don't just say, I don't like that idea. Please pray and listen to the Lord and show us how we could do things better. And let us come united away from the meeting so that we can quickly get something in place. Because as I look at the church, miracles are happening even now. And we need to be ready and in a position to grow and have the structures for growth, because God is about to move. God bless.